G'day and welcome back to my channel. Yes, it's time for another one of these. Yes, afraid so. Need my coffee. It's getting a little bit cool in the mornings. Now, I did a video a while back about the irrelevance, the total pointlessness of modelling. And that was a really good thing. No, what I mean is the concept of modelling being irrelevant, pointless, is perfect because that is a way to approach it that is very beneficial to your health and your well-being, right? Rather than getting all het up and rivet counting everything and getting all worked up and everything, There's people that tell me, oh, modelling is always work, it's always hard work for me. Then you're not enjoying it. You're not doing it for what it should be. Scale modelling is a hobby. It's something you do apart from your work to relax, to wind down. Now, there's an interesting Japanese concept called Wabi Sabi, right? I probably don't say it right, but I'll put up on the screen how it's spelt, all right? Now, this is a fantastic idea. I really think it applies to modelling, and I think it'll help you do your scale modelling and get a lot more out of it. And the reason is, what Wabi Sabi means is, in simple terms, it's hard to translate, but nothing's ever perfect. Nothing is ever finished. And nothing ever lasts. All right? Now, in modelling, that's very, very apparent. And in fact, that's not something to put you off. That is actually something to encourage you and realise when you can stop or when you can move on. Now, I'll explain more in a sec, but I think this is a topic for one of the Unfinished Gooch. Yep, it's one of these. So, without further ado, let's get on with that one. Roll the music. And of course, merchandise is always available from my store, where you can get Tug mugs and you can get Flock of the Rivet Counters t-shirts. Yes, there's lots more there. There'll be more stuff coming this month. Now, let me explain myself a bit more clearly. This concept of Wabi Sabi, right? It's about imperfectness. It's about the elusiveness of the world and how things decay. In fact, the two words mean subdued, austere beauty, right? And that's for the Wabi. And the Sabi means rustic patina. Now, rustic patina is perfect for modelling. That's what we're trying to do. And in fact, as much as I whinge and complained about the Spanish method, which, is everything's really rusty and decaying and the rest of it, that's actually Wabi Sabi. You're depicting something in its imperfect state. You're depicting something in decay, and it's obviously in transition because there was a moment before where it was brand new. There'll be a moment afterwards where it's completely rusted and grey and it's horrible, and you're picking just a frame in time, right, of its transition into decay. And in that, there is beauty. This is Wabi Sabi. Wabi Sabi is all about the fact of appreciating that things change, that things decay, that things get broken. Right? It's similar to that thing where they take a broken, object and they put it back together with gold in it, right? Which I think might be Chinese. But anyhow, that's kind of the same way you embrace something, even if it's broken, it has beauty. And Wabi Sabi is kind of like that. So from one point of view, Wabi Sabi is, when we weather our models, when we break them, when we make them look broken down and the rest of it, we're showing the imperfectness of the machine. We're showing that it did fall apart. It had faults. It got broken. It got shot down. It might have just been static in a field and completely rusted away. A lot of people like to do a tank as they're seen now. A lot of them sitting around in fields and things, and they're just all rusted out, right? From 50 years ago. And people model that. And that's a Wabi Sabi thing. Okay? So that's one way to look at it. But also, I think, we can look at each individual Wabi Sabi topic, right? We can look at it's never finished, it's not perfect, and also it doesn't last forever, okay? So I suppose that one is a little bit about it's not perfect, but it also says it won't last. Let's break it down. I'm going to talk about each individual part of this and how I think it applies to modelling and how that's a good thing. All right, now we'll get on to the first part of the three things. Never perfect. Okay, so in this, it applies to art in that art that has flaws, right, is treasured in Japan, apparently, okay? And it's understood that things aren't perfect, but sometimes in that imperfectness, there is beauty. There's heaps of examples, and you'll happen with your modelling, where you actually got something wrong or you missed something, and yet when you came back later and you presented it, maybe you took it to a model show, you showed it to friends, they noticed this but thought it was really good, and they thought you'd deliberately done this thing, right? You'd splashed a brush here, you'd missed a part there, you'd done whatever, and they actually embraced it and said, oh, that's great, that's a great idea, I'm going to do that to mine. You'll probably know examples of your own where you think it's a cock-up and you only noticed it later on after you showed everyone, and yet it actually is quite relevant to the subject and it adds another level of interest. And as I said, your friends and people will pick it up and they think it's good, and yet you see it as a defect. So this is the thing, you probably should never worry about things that are wrong with your model because you're never going to get it perfect. It's impossible, okay? There is no way to replicate at these tiny scales something that is, 30, 70, 150, 600 times larger, all right? It's just not going to happen. Everything we do in modelling is an approximation, all right? So we should approach it more as an art, right? Try not to be too technical and engineering about it and counting roots. No. Does it look like the subject? Yeah. Does it give you the feeling of it? I mean, if you've done a diorama or something, do you get the feeling of movement? Do you get the feeling of decay? Do you get the presence of a crew working on something? Have you achieved an expression of what you were trying to show or share? That's Wabi Sabi, okay? It's not perfect. It doesn't have to be. And in fact, in its imperfectness, sometimes you will create something unique and interesting. And it's, ever try to do a diorama where you're throwing the grass down, or you do like a seascape and you're throwing it down? You can't sit there and make it perfect. You can't go tap, tap, tap and do everything. No, you actually let it be random. The more random it is, the more beautiful it'll be. The more you make it perfect, it doesn't look right. It's sterile. So in our modelling, allow for imperfection with your, if you're just doing panel shading or you're doing weathering. Don't try and be too perfect and think it's got to be like this photo. No, just let it go. Just let the thing happen. I mean, it's in woodworking, right? I'm a woodworker. And one of the things you do is you let the wood express itself. Sure, if you're making a table and things and fixed legs, they're a certain shape. But often if you're just carving something, often the wood will have knots and grain in it, and the chiseling and everything will bend and turn in certain ways that may not have been what you've planned. And the wood reveals what's within it, and that creates something. That's Wabi Sabi, okay? Same thing happens with marble. You talk about anybody that basically uses marble and carves sculptures, especially when you go into antiquity. And they always knew the object was in the marble, it was waiting to come out. And this is the thing. It's not the perfection you're looking for. What you're looking for is the expression. So what I'm really trying to say is, let your models be. Let them create themselves. When you get to a point where you're happy with it, that's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be finished. You don't have to finish a model. Do you know that? You don't have to. You can get to a point where you go, that's it, I've enjoyed that one, that's fine. Put it in the box, put it in the shelf, whatever, and move on. That's Wabi Sabi. Knowing that things don't have to be perfect. And this brings us on to the next thing. Nothing is ever finished, and this includes my coffee, which has gone cold, right? There's very Wabi Sabi. It's decayed, it's gone cold. And yet, when my coffee goes cold, it's different. It's that iced coffee. Especially today, it's a bit cold. And that's a good thing. So these are sort of the concepts that I'm trying to share with you, and I'm trying to share what I'm beginning to understand about them. All right, so when I said in the other one, you don't have to finish a model, that's the thing. Things are never finished. They're never finished at all. Don't think that anything is ever finished. I mean, look at the roads around your town, your city, or whatever, right? The maintenance guys, the council, whatever, they're always fixing them. They're always extending them. They're always changing them. They're always digging up things. They're always knocking down houses and putting flow, right? It's never finished. It's not like suddenly one day here's a city. I mean, there are cities like that. Canberra, for instance, Australia, was designed, put down, that's it. But it would have changed over the years. They would have found there were faults, there were things. Your body is never finished. It's always changing itself, and sometimes not for the better for me, Your teeth are decaying and changing and have to be fixed and modified. Nothing ever remains the same, and nothing is ever finished. things evolve all the time, okay? Society continually evolves. There is not just one thing. If you're in the mindset that this is how things are and they will always be like that, then you're living in a delusion. And the same with your modelling, right? Not every one of your models can be perfect. Okay, well, we knew that. But also, they change. Your appreciation for your modelling changes, the things you're looking for in it. Like, you may have been someone that wanted everything perfect and then you realised you couldn't do that. Maybe you had that first realisation. Then you move on, you're a little more lax and you kind of just enjoy things. Then you might even get to sort of like with me, where I don't sort of care at all. There are things I will pursue when I'm interested in the accuracy, and actually it's the challenge of modifying something so small and getting it closer to the realism. I know it's never going to be perfect. I know I can never actually make it exactly as per the real thing, and I understand that. I'm no illusion at all there. But I try to approach it, okay? And that is the challenge. It's the challenge of sitting down like scratch building something. It's the challenge of fiddling with, bits of plastic and trying to get them to the point where they closely resemble the thing I'm trying to portray. And I trick your eye, or I give you the illusion that looks real. It's never real. It's never real. It's all an illusion, okay? So nothing lasts, okay? Your abilities are going to fade. Like my eyes are going and my hands are wobbling, right? Your desires and needs in the hobby will change. Your models themselves don't last. Cats knock them off the shelf. That goes on here quite a bit, and they destroy them. My cat is very Wabi Sabi, sort of often destroying things. But anyhow, your models won't last. I mean, I've had easy line, on all the rigging, just totally decay and fall away. It doesn't last. The paint, if it's sitting in the wrong spot and it gets too much sunlight on it, it's going to fade. Sometimes the glue dries out and things fall off. Your modelling is going to change. That can be an opportunity because you can often just get those models, you can re-rig them, repaint them, redo them if you want to, or you can accept that they're not perfect and leave them as they are, or you can move on to the next topic. So yes, the last sort of layer in this concept of Wabi Sabi, nothing ever lasts, okay? So I've done a video previously where I basically discussed what happens to your models after you die, right? And there were a lot of very interesting responses. But of course, a lot of people talk about entropy and nothing, everything's decay and doesn't matter what you do, that everything's inevitable. There's all kind of pessimistic attitudes. But look, the beauty is, if you stuff up a model and if you do a bad one, well, that's not going to last. The next one you're going to do is something else. That goes to the past, okay? Even if you do the most perfect representation you can and as close as possible, just enjoy it for the moment because it won't last, right? It's like me. I've won all these, medals and awards and everything. So what? No one cares. They're on a shelf somewhere in my living room. Who cares? Occasionally I look at them, but it doesn't matter. That fame, that fleeting 15 minutes of fame, all right? It doesn't last. It doesn't last at all, okay? Nothing lasts. Nothing at all. You may think this house that you've been paying the mortgage for, strive to get together, and this garden is perfect and everything. Well, it'll only exist while you're there, and even then it will change constantly, right? Because it'll never be perfect and it'll never be finished. But also, it's not going to last. One day somebody's going to come along and bulldoze all that down. Now, with your modelling, if you move like me, you know that, your hobby rooms don't last. But that's okay because it's all about renewal and refresh, and that's a good thing. The whole idea of burning something down and then letting the regrowth come through. This is what happens here in Australia. We have these horrendous bushfires. They burn everything down, right? But it's actually a natural part of the environment and of life in Australia. And most of the species have been developed to actually embrace this. In fact, there's a whole lot of trees whose nuts only crack open after the heat of a fire. Yep. They're actually been built to embrace the Wabi Sabi of this sort of the change and the inevitability and the decay of things. So after the fire, they then crack open and the seeds come out. And why? This is actually beneficial because after the fire, there's all the ash that goes into the soil and that creates a hell of a lot more nutrients. All that carbon and all that stuff that's burnt gets down in the soil and actually enriches it. Right? There's a whole lot of chemicals and phosphates and nitrates and outrates and intrates, right? There's a whole lot of traits that go back into the soil after a fire. And there's a number of the plants that embrace that. They wait for the fire, then they release their seeds, they grow into this new environment. There's also less competition and away they go. Same thing can happen to you with your modelling. Let's try and break that down. Say you've got a huge stash, right? And so you never know what to build. Sell it. Sell the lot. I mean, I'm thinking, well, I've culled about a third of mine already because I had too much. It's lovely having a stash. It's lovely to go, oh, look, I've got all these kits. Some are good to grab because they're rare, sure. And those ones you know are not going to pop up very often, sure, get them, put them away. But you can have kits there that you could buy tomorrow. It's not really a problem. And if you amass a huge stash, you're not being Wabi Sabi. What's going to happen to that at the end? Well, there's a point where you die and decay. That stash may just get thrown away. There's little point to it. Right? All your models may not be appreciated unless you've left them somewhere. They'll just get thrown away. Everything. Entropy happens all the time. Those things will just disappear. 100 years from now, who cares what model you built, right? They will be in landfill or they will have been melted down and made into a tug mug. So the thing is, with your modelling, realise there's an impermanence to it. It's not perfect. What you're building is never finished. It's always modifying and changing, and the next model you'll do will be better, and the next model from after that may be worse. It doesn't matter. There's a constant changing in your modelling. But also at the end of it, when you finish the model, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you finish or you don't finish a model, because these things don't last. All that matters, actually, is the moment. All right? What matters is the hobby, is doing it now. Enjoying the hobby, working on your models. You know, it's the process of sitting there and getting into that nothingness and irrelevance and zoning into that space where we're in algorithms and just enjoying the process. It's like music. Music doesn't really exist. It only happens as a continuous stream of a thing, right? Sound, right? Continuous lots of sounds, one after the other, can only be experienced as it moves through time. You can't take a snapshot and say that's music. You can try and draw it on a bit of paper, you can write the stuff out, right? If you know how to interpret sheet music. But even then, you'll sing it in your mind. I'm a musician, I know. You don't look at that and go, yes, I've got that song. You don't. You work your way through the notes. And this is the thing with modelling. It's not perfect, it's never finished, and it's not going to last. And that doesn't matter. Enjoy the moment. I think that's what I got out of understanding Wabi Sabi. And I hope you do too. So don't worry about revert counters. Don't worry about too much perfection. Don't worry about pleasing your friends or anything. Just scale, model for the sheer joy of it. Enjoy what you're doing. Have fun. In fact, I'm at my best when I don't make a video of my build. When I just build for me, having fun, and I don't care about you guys. Something in that, isn't there? Yeah. And I've done some of my best work off camera and then shown you later, because I wasn't actually trying to film it and show you technique. It's the Bounty, the Rebel Bounty is one of the classic ones. That I was building that just for me. Then eventually I started making videos of it. I had photographs. I told you what I did. That was Wabi Sabi. It wasn't perfect. It didn't last, and now it's gone. It was popular for a while, but I don't know if people still watch that video. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't last forever. But the moment, right now, that's where we should be. So there you go. That's my philosophy and my understanding of Wabi Sabi as far as it pertains to scale modelling. So, look, if you like that, hit the like button and all that sort of stuff and all the little things there. And, by all means, go to the store, do that sort of thing. And if you really want to help me out, send me some cash. Yes, buy me a curry. Yes, buy me a curry. No contracts, nothing. You can just sling me a few bucks and I get a curry for dinner. And then I don't starve to death, And Bassa Cat will be back. Yes, I know a lot of you ask. Bassa Cat will be back in a future video. But that's all I've got to say. All right? So if you enjoyed that, I hope so. Make a comment, do whatever. All right. Goodbye from Australia, and it's hooroo from Harry Houdini.